The small town of Willow Creek was the kind of place where secrets didn't stay buried for long, at least, that's what everyone thought. Nestled on the edge of thick, whispering woods, the town carried an eerie reputation. Kids whispered about strange lights after dark, hunters swore they'd heard voices when no one was around, and old folks would shake their heads and say, "The woods remember what people want to forget." But no one could have predicted how one quiet night would change everything. What happened next will shock you. Stay with us as the story unfolds. Like this video and subscribe to this channel for more intriguing stories. Marcus Bennett wasn't the kind of man most people noticed. At 23, he worked double shifts at the gas station on Main Street, barely scraping by to help his mother with rent. People saw him as a nobody, just another young man stuck in the cycle of poverty, invisible to the town's wealthy elites. But Marcus was more than they knew. He was sharp, observant, and had a memory like steel. If something unusual happened in Willow Creek, Marcus noticed it. He'd learned the hard way that being underestimated could be a weapon if you played it right. Still, no one really listened to Marcus. Not his classmates back in school. Not his boss. Not even Sheriff Dalton, the man who ruled the town like his personal kingdom. Sheriff William Dalton was the kind of man who wore his badge like a crown. Everyone knew he bent the law to serve his friends and silence his enemies. If you were rich or connected, Dalton was your protector. But if you were poor, he made sure you remembered your place. Marcus had seen Dalton's cruelty firsthand. He'd been stopped and searched more times than he could count, usually for fitting the description. Dalton never apologized. Instead, he smirked, like he enjoyed reminding Marcus that he had power and Marcus didn't. But that was before the night in the woods. It started with a scream. Marcus had just finished his late-night shift and was walking home past the tree line when he heard it high-pitched, desperate, cutting through the still night air. He froze, his heart hammering. Then came another sound, muffled voices, low and urgent, and the distinct crunch of boots on dry leaves. Curiosity warred with fear. But something inside him pushed him forward. Quietly, Marcus crept closer to the woods, his body hidden in the shadows. Through the trees, he saw it, two men dragging a girl, her wrists tied, her face streaked with tears. Marcus recognized her instantly. Rachel Dalton. The sheriff's daughter. Marcus's first instinct was to rush in, to help. But he stopped himself. These men weren't amateurs, they moved with precision, like they'd done this before. One held a knife, the other kept scanning the woods as if expecting trouble. And Marcus noticed something else. The truck they had parked nearby wasn't some rusted junker. It was a black SUV with tinted windows and custom rims. The kind only the wealthy in town could afford. This wasn't a random kidnapping. It was planned. He fumbled for his phone, snapping a few shaky photos from the shadows. His hands trembled as he hit record on the video. But just as he was capturing the proof, a branch cracked beneath his foot. The men froze. One turned, his eyes narrowing into the darkness. Marcus held his breath, heart pounding so loud he was sure they could hear it. Seconds stretched like hours before the man turned back to Rachel, muttering, "Let's move." They shoved her into the SUV and sped off into the night. By morning, Willow Creek was in chaos. Rachel Dalton was missing. Posters went up, search parties formed, and Sheriff Dalton was everywhere, barking orders and threatening anyone who dared slow down the investigation. But Marcus noticed something strange. For a man whose daughter had been kidnapped, Dalton didn't seem desperate. He seemed angry. Calculated. As though the whole thing was less about finding Rachel and more about controlling the narrative. Marcus knew he had proof. He had the photos, the video, the evidence that Rachel hadn't just vanished, she'd been taken. But he also knew what would happen if he went straight to Dalton. Dalton would bury it. Or worse, bury him. Marcus made a bold choice. Instead of going to Dalton, he confided in Mrs. Carter, his old schoolteacher who still believed in him when no one else did. She was horrified at what she saw in the video. Together, they crafted a plan. They leaked the footage anonymously to the town's only independent journalist. Within hours, it was online and it spread like wildfire. The town exploded with questions. Who were the men? Why hadn't the sheriff mentioned an SUV in his report? Why did Dalton's closest political ally own the exact same model of vehicle? For the first time in years, Sheriff Dalton was on the defensive. His iron grip on Willow Creek was slipping. That night, as Marcus walked home, a black SUV pulled up beside him. Two men stepped out, the same ones from the woods. "Sheriff wants to talk," one growled, grabbing Marcus by the arm. They dragged him into the vehicle. His stomach dropped as the woods swallowed them again. They stopped at an old hunting cabin deep in the forest. And there, sitting calmly at the table, was Sheriff Dalton himself. "Smart kid," Dalton said, his voice low, dangerous. "Smarter than I gave you credit for. But you've made a mistake." Marcus's blood ran cold. Because there, in the corner of the cabin, sat Rachel Dalton. But this time, she wasn't tied up. She wasn't crying. She was smirking. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes glinting with something Marcus couldn't place. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said softly. Confusion swirled in Marcus's mind. What did she mean? Sheriff Dalton stood, towering over him. "You see, son, sometimes sacrifices have to be made for power. What happened last night, that was business. But now you've stuck your nose where it doesn't belong." Rachel tilted her head, almost playfully. "Daddy doesn't like loose ends." The realization hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Rachel wasn't a victim. She was part of it. The kidnapping was staged. For years, Marcus had been underestimated, dismissed as a nobody. But now, he was holding the biggest secret in Willow Creek, a secret that could topple the sheriff, expose Rachel, and unravel the darkness that lurked beneath the town's polished surface. But Dalton wasn't about to let that happen. The sheriff leaned close, his breath hot against Marcus's ear. "You've got one choice. You disappear quietly, or you disappear permanently." Marcus looked him dead in the eye. For the first time, he wasn't afraid. Because tucked inside his jacket was a small device still recording every word. As the recording captured Rachel's chilling laughter and Dalton's threats, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. A notification lit up the screen. Dalton's eyes widened. Marcus smiled. But before he could say another word, the lights in the cabin cut out. The room plunged into darkness. A single gunshot rang out. And then, silence. Mystery in the woods. What really happened that night? The sound of Officer Daniel's final words still echoed in the night air. It wasn't an accident. Someone wanted her gone. And just like that, silence swallowed the woods. Marcus froze, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. The detective's flashlight flickered against the dark trees, shadows stretching like long, skeletal fingers. For the first time since that terrifying night, Marcus realized something. This wasn't just about Emily's death. This was bigger. Much bigger. The air was thick with tension as Marcus followed Officer Daniels deeper into the woods. The detective's eyes darted around, sharp, calculating, like he already knew something Marcus didn't. "Look here," Daniels said, kneeling by a moss-covered log. He brushed away leaves to reveal deep tire tracks buried in the mud. Fresh. Too fresh for an accident that supposedly happened weeks ago. Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. "If Emily crashed, why are there tracks leading away from the cliff?" he whispered. Daniels didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a small bag, holding up something glimmering under the flashlight. A silver bracelet. Emily's bracelet. The one she never took off. But here it was, in the dirt, far from where her car was found. Marcus stumbled back. This doesn't make sense. The report said she died on impact. The car, the flames. Daniels cut him off sharply. Reports can be altered. Evidence can be staged. Don't you get it, kid? Someone covered this up. Someone powerful. Word spread quickly in town after Emily's death, rumors of foul play, whispers about her standing up to someone she shouldn't have. But Marcus never paid them much mind. Until now. As they exited the woods, Marcus spotted a black SUV idling by the roadside. Its tinted windows reflected nothing but darkness. The engine hummed low, threatening. Daniel stiffened, his hand resting near his holster. "They've been watching me ever since I reopened Emily's file," he muttered. Marcus's breath caught. Who? The SUV's headlights flickered on, blinding them. Then, just as suddenly, it sped off into the night. Daniels turned to Marcus, his expression grim. "Whoever it is, they don't want us digging deeper. And now, they know you're involved." The next day, Marcus sat at Emily's mother's kitchen table. Her hands trembled as she poured tea, eyes red from weeks of sleepless nights. "She tried to tell me," her mother whispered. "The night before she died, she called. Said she'd found out something she shouldn't have. She was scared, Marcus. Really scared." Marcus leaned forward. "Did she say what it was?" Her mother shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "All she said was, 'If anything happens to me, don't trust the police report.'" Marcus's stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt colder. And that's when he noticed it on the mantelpiece, framed in a photo, Emily at the town's annual gala. Her arm linked with none other than Mayor Harrington. Marcus's mind raced. The mayor, a man with deep pockets and even deeper connections, and Emily, a young woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Could she have discovered something about him? Later that evening, Marcus met with Daniels at a diner on the edge of town. The place was empty, except for the faint buzz of a neon light above the window. Daniels slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were photographs of Emily with Mayor Harrington at multiple events. Campaign rallies, charity fundraisers, even private dinners. She was close to him, Daniels explained, his voice low. Too close. And the week before she died? She filed a complaint with City Hall about misused funds in the mayor's office. Millions gone. Vanished. Marcus's hands shook as he flipped through the documents. "You're saying she found out he was stealing money?" Daniels nodded. "And people who expose men like him don't just vanish. They're silenced." Marcus felt his chest tighten. The injustice was suffocating. That night, Marcus returned home to find an envelope slipped under his door. No address. No sender. Just his name scrawled across it. Inside was a single piece of paper. 5 words written in bold, black ink. "Stop digging, or you're next." Marcus's hands trembled. His mind screamed at him to quit, to let it go. But his heart, his loyalty to Emily, burned stronger. He couldn't stop. Not now. Days later, Daniels called Marcus to meet at the edge of town. When Marcus arrived, he found the detective pacing nervously by his car. "They know we're onto them," Daniels said, glancing over his shoulder. "Last night my house was broken into. Files missing. They're closing in." Marcus swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" Daniels looked him dead in the eyes. "We hit back. We find proof. Real proof. Something they can't bury." But before Marcus could respond, headlights appeared in the distance. A car barreled toward them, faster and faster. "Get down!" Daniels shouted. The screech of tires. A deafening crash. Glass shattered as the car slammed into Daniels' vehicle, flipping it onto its side. Marcus hit the ground, ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, the other car was gone. Daniels lay bleeding on the pavement, barely conscious. With his last ounce of strength, he gripped Marcus's arm. "They'll come for you next. Find the drive. Emily, hit it." And then his hand went limp. Marcus stumbled back, his vision blurred with panic. The detective's words rang in his ears, "Find the drive." Emily hid something. Proof. Evidence. The very thing that cost her life. But where? Marcus tore through Emily's belongings at her mother's house the next day. Drawers, journals, photo albums, nothing. Until he opened a music box Emily had loved since childhood. Inside, under the velvet lining, was a tiny flash drive. Marcus's pulse raced. He plugged it into his laptop. The screen filled with files, bank statements, emails, even video recordings. Evidence of embezzlement, bribery, and worst of all, conversations tying Mayor Harrington to organized crime. It was damning. Explosive. Enough to topple everything. But before Marcus could process it all, his phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "We know you have it." Marcus's world spun. Every shadow outside his window felt like a threat. Every car that passed by made his heart lurch. He knew he had only two choices. Expose the truth and risk his life. Or bury it and live with the guilt. But then another text came in. This time, with a photo. Of his own mother. Tied to a chair. Terrified. The caption read, "Bring the drive. Tonight. Or she dies." Marcus's heart shattered. His breath caught in his throat. He clutched the flash drive in his trembling hand, torn between justice for Emily and the safety of his own family. The truth is finally within Marcus's grasp, but at a deadly price. Will he risk everything to bring Emily's killers to justice, or will fear force him to sacrifice the one piece of evidence that could change everything? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of dignity, power, and justice.